This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. We're in the fight camp. It's week 1. I'm here joined by Miss Stefi Cohen. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very well. We were introduced a day before yesterday. I'll let you tell people why you're here in England, in Essex as well, what you're doing here.
I'm chasing my coach, pretty much. I have a fight coming up in September 18 in Jacksonville, Florida. And, you know, I'm brand new to the sport. I've been boxing for a little bit less than a year. Did competitive powerlifting for 8 years prior to that. So I'm kind of trying to catch up. So I just, you know, I didn't want to waste any time, miss any training days. So I came here to train and obviously watch my teammates. So Sukan, who's going for his world title, and Yildirim, who is here, you know, trying to get a win after his loss with Canelo. So here to support as well.
We'll come on to the boxing side later. So people that know you and kind of follow you on social media will know that you're, I think it's a 25-time powerlifting record holder. So that's your background in like elite kind of competing. But you've recently over the last few weeks, had your debut in boxing. So give me a summary of that.
Of the boxing debut?
Yes.
Okay, so I got offered this fight in September about, 6 or 7 months ago, which is really not a lot of time to figure out other fights prior, but you do need the experience before you go on a pay-per-view or a big event that's like televised. So my coach Pedro Diaz was putting up an event under Mundo Boxing Promotions in the DR and offered me a fight there. We flew somebody from Colombia and that was it. I had my first fight with like maybe 2 weeks notice, but it was super fun and I won by knockout on the 3rd round.
So I'm sure people have seen this clip on social media, on YouTube, etc. I have myself, but I suppose people will want to know now, despite kind of 8 years in powerlifting, is your focus now solely on the sport of boxing?
Yeah, for now it is. It came to a point after competing in powerlifting for 8 years and doing anywhere from 4 to 6 meets in a year where my body was just not the same. You know, I'm 29 years old. I was having a really hard time just recovering from training and doing what I needed to do to continue breaking records or continue improving my marks in competitions. So the lockdown was pretty much like the perfect excuse for me to lay low, lay off the heavy weights and try to find my passion for fitness again. So at the beginning of the lockdown, I bought a heavy bag just for conditioning, just because I wanted to do something fun really and try to learn a new skill. And I hung it on my squat rack in my garage and filled it with old clothes and sandbags. And that was kind of the beginning of everything. And since then, you know, I went from training once a week to now training twice a day, 6 times a week. So, yeah, I got bit by the boxing bug for sure.
I'm very curious to know, at what point in your life do you think to yourself, I want to be a powerlifter? It's quite a unique and kind of specific field in any sport. So at what point in your life do you realise that you're good enough to do that and to compete at elite level?
You know, I'm not the type of person that plans anything in advance. Despite all of the things that I've achieved, I'm more of a rolling with the punches type of person. You know, I like to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented in front of me when the opportunity matches kind of like my skills, my talents, and my aptitudes. So in the case of powerlifting, I grew up playing soccer. My dream was to become a professional soccer player.
Sorry, you're in England now. You can't use the word soccer.
I grew up in Venezuela, so we say football too. So played for the national soccer team back home, moved to the US, wanted to play pro, ended up quitting to focus on school. And that's kind of when I was like left with this void and this kind of identity crisis that I let go of being an athlete to just being a civilian, and I just couldn't deal with that. So I tried a bunch of different sports and eventually landed in powerlifting. Something similar happened with me with boxing, you know, but in the sense of powerlifting. So started with CrossFit, wasn't strong at all. Started with weightlifting, and then honestly, one day I decided to max out deadlift lifted 315, signed up for my first competition. 6 months later, I was breaking world records. So, some people are just, are born with an inherent ability to develop certain skills. Mine was definitely strength, and I was lucky enough to find it.
So that's kind of, it's not in the past because it's only recent and you've only been boxing, like you said, for the last however long. But boxing now for you, what is, not an end goal, but what is kind of one of the first goals for you to accomplish in, let's have it right, women's boxing is killing it right now. It's like there's cards now with some, especially here in the UK, where you sometimes get 2, maybe 3 women's fights, where 5 years ago that wasn't kind of the norm, but now it's completely accepted, and rightly so, that some of the best fights we've seen over the last few years have been involved with the women. So what is your kind of one of your first goals to achieve in boxing?
I mean, first and foremost, I just want to improve my skills as a fighter, and continue getting better day by day. My slogan is "the limit does not exist." That was kind of what I was known for in powerlifting, breaking stereotypes, breaking boundaries, challenging myself, and pushing past those societal and physical limits that are put upon ourselves. So I'm taking a pretty similar mentality when it comes to boxing, even though obviously everything that I do with the intention of being the best in the world. Nothing that I've ever done has been just a hobby, including school. Every sport that I've done has been with the promise to myself of always giving 110% and leaving no stones unturned. So obviously, I want to be the best boxer in the world, but I've learned from competing since I was 6 years old that when you focus on the end goal, you stop enjoying the journey and you start getting frustrated, and it's just not a conducive mindset to have to achieve those goals. So rather than focusing on that end goal and stressing myself out and being worried about it, I'm just focusing on the day-to-day, the journey, enjoying it, enjoying even being a beginner and starting over from the ground up at 29 in a brand new sport.
Are there any current or former female fighters that you take inspiration from?
Yeah, absolutely. Katie Taylor was one of the first female boxers that I kind of got acquainted with. Clarissa Shields and Shannon. What's her last name? Bridges? Huh? Shannon Courtney. And Ebony Bridges, she's from Australia, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think those are the 4 girls that I kind of pay the most attention to. I really like their style, and most importantly, I like what they stand for. How professional they are. They're serious, but they're gorgeous. They know how to talk. They're super dedicated to their craft. So those are kind of my role models.
I mean, obviously, they recently fought where Shannon Courtney was victorious in a world title win not too long ago. There's always been the debate over what you're talking about. Kind of women obviously have the freedom in today's world to do and look how they look, and we shouldn't obviously judge, but people do judge. So there was the whole debate over, because Ebony Bridges was obviously... Yeah, well, she wears lingerie to a weigh-in, gets criticism from a certain aspect of boxing fans, and then people saying, oh, you shouldn't sell yourself that way in boxing, but, she kind of backs up her argument of why not.
Yeah, I love this topic. It's actually a topic for a new book that I'm writing. It's about the female athlete paradox. So basically it's this dichotomy that female athletes have of staying true to their identity as an athlete, being perceived as like strong, aggressive, assertive, masculine-esque. And then there's your identity as a woman, which is being feminine, being sensual, being wanted, whatever, sexy. And what happens is that this is the reality, that female sports just aren't as popular as male sports. That is the reality. And the main demographic that watches sports is male. So in order to win the approval of fans, in order to fill up a stadium, you gotta play the game. And the game is the people that are watching, sadly but true. So I don't blame her. I understand perfectly why she's doing it. She wants to get eyes on her because we don't get the same support as guys. We don't get paid the same as guys. So we are essentially capitalizing on our femininity in our bodies to get that attention, and then we're backing it up with our skills, which she has. She's a phenomenal fighter. So, okay, big deal. She showed up in a lingerie. So what?
The only thing I can compare that to is that there's certain boxers with, what, not to sound disrespectful, but they have probably limited talent. So what they do is, if they can talk well, they use that aspect of their game to sell their fights. So there's loads of boxers out there, if they don't talk well and they're not trash talking, they wouldn't be put in that situation. So that boxer thinks to himself, well, I'm kind of here, but if I kind of talked more, I'd be there. I suppose Ebony's doing the same thing. She thinks to herself, we're in a kind of still a minority part of boxing where there's still people judging, so I'm going to use assets and whatever else to get more eyes on the sport.
Exactly that. And, I think when you rely on your sexuality and on objectifying your body, when you rely on that as a marketing tool or to get opportunities, I have a problem with that, because that totally sends the wrong message and it perpetuates the main issue, right? Which is female athletes don't get the same respect and opportunities as male athletes. But when you use it as a tool, not as a crutch, like I was saying, when you use it as a tool to say, you're essentially like waving a flag. Hey, look at me. I'm smart, I'm talented, and I'm also nice to look at. When you use it as just another tool, like just the icing on the cake, it's perfect, I think, in my opinion. And it's just the game we got to play.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of UK fans who had never watched Ebony Bridges fight before kind of see her approach, and that's down to her. But then she's ultimately going to be judged by what she does in the ring. And she delivered, like, on the night, in a brilliant fight with Shannon Courtney. She came second best, but she still put it all on the line. We see the state of her face afterwards, and you could tell she's, an expression we'd use in England, game as fuck. She was there for the taking all the way.
Exactly, 100%. That was a great fight.
Okay, so when's your next fight?
September 18 in Jacksonville, Florida.
Sorry, you said.
Yeah, September 18. I still don't have an opponent. We're figuring that out. But I'm confident, calm.
Do you want to call anyone out here now, right now?
Ebony. No, I'm kidding. No, nobody yet. I'm just warming up. I'm fine tuning my engine. But we'll probably check back in next year, and I'll surely have a name for you.
Okay, well, Steffi, pleasure to meet you this week, and thank you very much for your time in this interview. And I'm sure, again, we'll catch up at some point. So good luck with your team members. Team members, is that the right term? Yeah, Kanzu and also Avni Yildirim, who are in very good fights this weekend at Fight Camp. And yeah, we'll speak soon.
Thank you so much. See you guys.